Getting old.
Keeping you, what have you been up to? Rochelle, Adam.
Great to be here, Rochelle.
Okay, excellent. Now, Adam, what
Yep.
is your occupation?
I am very privileged in being the state member for Terrigal, which is a state seat, state electorate, named after the suburb of Terrigal, and it goes from Kilcare in the south to Foresters Beach in the north. It's about 132 square kilometres, with about 77,000 people living here. 7 surf lifesaving clubs, second largest number of surf lifesaving clubs of any state seat.
Okay, awesome. And what are your interests?
Oh gosh, well, I'm a bit of a political tragic, as you can tell, obviously because I am a state member of parliament. But look, just generally being on the coast, relaxing, enjoying our lifestyle here, spending time with my wife, who's my best friend. We don't have kids, it's just the two of us. So we do spend a lot of time out and about in the community. Love going to the theatre. The Gossip Musical Society, fantastic. Highly recommend it. Bit of a plug there for the Gossip Musical Society. But actually, just we live in the best place in New South Wales. So it's so abundant with things to do. Whether you're walking, enjoying the social life we've got here, and it's changed a lot in the 20 years since I moved here. So it's really a great place to live. So Jill and I just enjoy being out and about in our community, to be honest.
Excellent. Yep. That's great because Central Coast, as you can see the picture behind us.
Another beautiful beach.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, people are moving here en masse. I mean, we're going to have 75,000 more people living on the coast in the next 13 years because we've got great schools, the best beaches in New South Wales, and you can get to Sydney easily. If you want to work in Sydney and commute, you can. We were talking about...
Don't forget Newcastle.
And going north to Newcastle if you wish to. But more and more people are actually able to work from home too these days. So it gives them the ability to actually live on the coast, work on the coast, send your kids to school on the coast. And it's a great place. And
fresh air.
Oh, one of the best lifestyles in the world.
Yeah, it's excellent. Okay, now getting into the nitty gritty of the questions of this time. What is your understanding of PTSD cancer and PTSD sport?
Well, obviously, like most people, especially in this job, I've had a lot of involvement with people who have had PTSD through their job roles, first responders especially, people who have been involved in or had to work with very confronting situations. So that was my first experience with people with PTSD. Look, my wife, everyone knows quite publicly, she has cancer and she was diagnosed when she was 46, and it's metastatic breast cancer, so there's no cure. And you see that in itself, the mental trauma that people go through when they're diagnosed with cancer. Most people don't realise is that when someone's diagnosed with cancer, one of the side effects is actually depression, and living with that and managing it as both a partner and also someone who actually has to live with it themselves. So it has a massive impact. But I've got to say, I didn't realise about PTSD in sport until obviously you explained your situation to me. That is something I'd never realised. Most people, obviously, sport is a fun thing for them. It's a vocation. And for someone to have to give up something they love because they were hurt and then struggle to either get back to do it or never be able to do it would be really difficult. So it's a different form of PTSD that I have been exposed to. Again, in this job, I've met hundreds of people who have different forms of PTSD. And again, we were discussing earlier the issues around mental health and how we manage it. Because there's not a broken bone, there's no blood seen, people have a bit of a stigma attached to mental health, and it's a real condition. And I think we as a society are finally coming to terms with the fact that it is a real illness. Just like whether it be cancer, whether it be diabetes, it's something that there is help for, both psychologically but also chemically, and people need to have a better understanding about it. It's not that we'll put you away in a dark room and never talk to you again because we don't know about it. So I think society is getting better at it, but it's important that people realise they have people they can talk to, get advice from. I think it's important that a lot of people don't, unless they've been through it themselves, don't really understand it.
Yeah.
And as a partner of someone who's living with cancer, you take on a bit of a role. I'm always worried that I may not say the right thing. So it's important that anyone living with those sorts of issues knows there's people they can talk to, and there's always another side to the story and always an outlet that you could be getting, whether it be through your clinician, whether it be someone like yourself who's ready to put themselves forward to help others, and especially on the Central Coast, there's so many avenues, so you're never alone. That's really one of those things that people need to realise, and no one is going to demonise you for, and what's more, if they shouldn't, And if they do, they're not the sort of people you want help from, because it's a real illness.
Well, thank you.
That's all right. No, that's okay.
So we're just some of the key words that you've been speaking about, and you know, one, it's not to be seen. You can't always see it. There's the stigma around it. They were some of the key words, and just really being able to more or less accept that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, unless you're in that person's shoes, you're never really going to know how they feel. And you can empathise with them and you can try to, but unless you are that person, it's always very difficult. And again, as a partner of someone living with cancer who has to live with it all her life, whatever that life will have, it's tough.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, and blokes especially, blokes don't talk about their problems. And I've seen this on the Central Coast, and we've got great outlets like Men's Sheds, etc., who are community outlets for blokes now, which never used to happen.
Yeah.
Because blokes in Australia would not talk about their problems. They'd let it get to a crisis point or worse before they dealt with it. Now people realise that it's better to find an outlet and have some way to discuss your issues.
Yeah.
And you will not be judged on it. You know, because that could just as easily happen to me or anybody else. So, you know, it's time that people learn to listen more and be a bit more empathetic towards others. And I think we as a community are getting better at that.
Yeah.
And especially on the Central Coast. I think we have a very strong community feel up here, which is very unique.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got more volunteers per capita than anywhere else in the country. And that speaks volumes about our community. And because while it's large, very rarely do you walk around and not bump into somebody you know. And it's that's one of the best parts about living here. So, look, I think what you're doing is really inspiring. And as you've been through your own, I suppose, we hate to use the word journey. We had this discussion offline, but it is a bit of a journey, not necessarily a good one sometimes. But it's important that people realise they can have someone who's been in their shoes and can understand and empathise with them to some degree, and maybe assist them through where they're going. So no, I think it's a great idea that what you want to do.
Thank you.
That's right.
Just to backtrack on some of the key other words that you've spoke about, change of priorities.
Yeah.
Changing priorities for not only that person, but then for you, is also then sometimes can be seen as a stigma because they're not understanding that person and to why they're wanting to do that, which I've also come up across, and you've spoken about that as well. And just the overall look, you know, you can't see it. You can't.
It's interesting. The people I've spoken to, like one chap who's a return service person, and his whole priorities in life have changed because of what he's seen, which you can't unsee. Different situation, and we find this with our first responders as well. You know, they're in situations which no normal human would ever want to be in, and would have trouble dealing with. And you know, again, you know, with my wife's case in point, you know, it's a reality check. It's a big reality check. It's a big wake up, and things that used to upset us don't worry us anymore because you get a greater understanding of your mortality, what really matters, and what's important to you or your partner or your family. The whole reality of that changes. And I think that's important that people have a bit of understanding. You know, we joke about midlife crisis and stuff like this, but it's a lifestyle change based on your circumstance.
Yeah.
And people shouldn't be criticised for that. There's usually a reason behind it, and it's usually a very good reason. Whether it be wanting to get your motorbike licence, or whether it be wanting to jump out of the aeroplane with a parachute, a perfectly good working aeroplane, or do something you've never done before because you have that drive now. Because again, what worried you or what upset you doesn't anymore. So yeah, it's important that people understand and be a bit more open to ideas when it comes to that. And we've had that change. I mean, things that used to upset Jill and I don't anymore, because you put it in the whole context of the time you've got on this planet, and you think, is it really worth getting worried about? So yeah, and that's where family's important too. I mean, we're really lucky. I mean, both our families live interstate, but they're very, very willing to just offer a voice, just have someone to talk to. And sometimes family don't always make situations better, but they do try. And you got to, and you know, and that's where I would say to most families, to try and put yourself in the other person's shoes, and realise that it's a tough trip, and they will need all the help they can get. Yeah.
Well, Thank you, Adam, for your time today.
My pleasure, Rochelle. Anytime.
So this has been Rochelle from Keeping Me, Keeping You. What have you been up to?